I literally hadn't. I mean, you're talking about how it's a trend that's going to happen in the future, but most people have no idea what this sort of stuff is. But
Yeah.
I feel like you've always been well ahead of the curve in terms of general finance knowledge and just stuff in general. Like, how did you know all this stuff? How did you get into it?
Um, so I wasn't always like this. Like you, um, yeah, you remember when I wasn't like really on it at the start of uni. Um, but essentially like last year, at the start of last year, I made sure that I knuckled down and just started reading as much as possible. Like every day I just read the Financial Times because I knew I wanted to get into finance from an early age. And I just knew that there's people in finance. I believe personally that has one of the most talented people in the world, like in terms of just their academic background, how smart these people are. And I was lucky enough at an early age to actually witness this and like have a few experiences, um, just through like multiple organizations that have helped me. But just understanding how successful these people are and like reading interviews, understanding the way they think, it just made me realize that if I want to get into this level, I have to like immerse myself in this field. So yeah, from I think a year and a half ago, I just made sure that every day I did my reading in terms of just read the Financial Times every day. So nonstop for like over a year and a half now. Made sure that I signed up to different things, like different newsletters, trying to have like the mind of a finance person, like an investor, trying to understand the way people think within this field. And luckily, I have a lot of friends who have got into this industry from secondary school, from university, from college, and it's made me. I was able to ask people like how they actually increase their knowledge. So this made me understand how people think in this industry, how you actually be successful in the industry. And that's something that's really important to me. So I knew I had to like immerse myself into this field and just make sure that my general knowledge is up as well. Um, so just making sure that my commercial awareness is always on top. But yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky enough to have like all these contacts and just understanding what makes someone like more knowledgeable. Just make so like the fact I've been lucky enough to have a few mentors as well, and just understanding, asking them loads of questions about how they got to where they are. Just it sounds basic, but it's really helpful just to speak to people that have been where you are, and have made a very successful career. So I essentially just took so many pages out of a book, I guess, and just put them all together. And yeah, just took all these little lessons that I learned from all these people, making sure that I immerse myself in this field. And yeah, that's essentially how I'm always trying to keep my knowledge up because I know how important it is in like where I want to be, within like the world of finance. So this is how I've always just made sure that I kept up with the news regardless. Yeah, just being strict on myself as well. Yeah, that's essentially how I have like how I believe that I have gained a lot of knowledge in the last year and a half, 2 years, slash 2 years.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, just making sure I read every day, FT, all these different art sources, making sure that I have enough time to do it in a day, within a few hours or an hour. And yeah, and another thing that really helps is a podcast as well. So I listen, yeah, actually it's true. I listen to a few podcasts from Bloomberg and
Okay.
I really recommend those. And there's another podcast they do with like very successful people in the industry. It's called Masters in Business, and that is something that also really helps me as well. And this is I can relate this back to like how to understand how these successful people got to where they are. Just listening to the way they think and speak and what got them there. So I took a lot of lessons from that, like just in terms of the fact that they did so much at an early age. And as I mentioned, like reading, like these guys have read so many books, like very informative books, and just yeah, it's crazy how they're so smart. Like, and this is why I always strive to be just trying to be more knowledgeable because I know I want to be as successful as these people, if not more successful. So, yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah, yeah. That's mad. So it's kind of like emulating their successes.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I'm just quite lucky enough to have had a few mentors as well who are quite successful. Just trying to always learn from them regardless.
Mm. Would you say like, because obviously when you were in, was it secondary school, you had that UBS internship because your school was sponsored.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that something that you, like, you knew you wanted to do, or was it like a bit of luck in there as well?
So I always attribute a lot of this to good fortune.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I always tell like in all my interviews, I always say like how lucky I was to have had this internship at such an early age. So I was only 15. But luckily, like I went to a school called, the Bridge Academy in Hackney and
Mm.
sponsored by UBS. It was a new school at the time and UBS sponsored the school like to be built. I think they put in like 50 million or something. It was crazy.
Damn.
Crazy like that. But every year they gave like year 10 students. I was the second year 10 class or third year 10 class because when I joined the school, there was only year 9. So I was a third year 10 class. But every year they gave year 10 students, the opportunity to do 2 weeks at UBS. And yeah, it was crazy. Like at 15 years old, you have the chance to work at one of the largest institutions in the world, one of the largest financial institutions in the world. Um, but yeah, it was really that essentially started my interest in like banking slash finance as a whole. Um, it got the ball rolling in that sense because I don't know what it was, but in those 2 weeks, I was really just fascinated within the whole industry. I wasn't even in like the main front office division. I was in operations, which was a back office role,
Yeah.
but the program was really good because they gave us such a good insight into a bank and how it works and like how the real world works. And I was only 15 at the time, and my mind was just like completely like blown because seeing people. I remember one day there was like a one moment actually. We were introduced to like a trader, and
Mm-hmm.
he just literally calmly told us, "Oh, I just lost 200k, but don't worry, I'll make that back today." What? And at that age, I was like, "What the hell? £200,000? You mad?" So yeah, I was just like, "Wow, these numbers are crazy." So I don't know what it was, but something just after that experience, I just knew I wanted to get into this world of finance. My mind was blown, but I think I was very lucky from an early age because it gave me that understanding and it gave me that kind of drive. Um, Something was just so fascinating about it. I think it's just the suits, and I was like a little kid at that point. And I lived like, yeah, I used to live I still live there in Hackney, but you could see from my road, um, that like you could see like there's a massive contrast, which is so weird because you could
Mm.
see from my side of the road to like Liverpool Street, and the contrast is crazy at that point anyway in Hackney. 10 years ago, 10 years ago, Hackney was before gentrification. It was really bad, but to see that contrast from one side of the road to the other, like a long road, you could see like the skyscrapers in Liverpool Street, and I just knew I wanted to work in the city one day. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, in that sense, I was quite fortunate. So like, yeah, that gave me that drive from an early age. And then ever since then, I just gave me like an opportunity to have that experience under my belt and then understanding more about the industry. And I was able to get a few more experiences, through like a charity called Into University, which I attribute a lot to to my like development, because they got me an opportunity at like an asset manager at just 17 years old, and then BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, at 18. So I put a lot of that down to them on terms of my development and just my understanding and interest in finance as a whole. Um, and yeah, like without those experiences, I would definitely UBS. I would definitely not be where I am now, like in terms of just having this understanding of finance, having like all these experiences. Without the UBS experience at just 15 years old, I wouldn't have been here, like talking to you now about how like I've had these experiences that have shaped me. So yeah, I'm quite.
Yeah, yeah. That's mad. I guess it's like placing value on all his experiences.